My name is James Ekeocha, and I'll be communicating the science of scientific communication. Modern day science encompasses almost everything we know in existence. With constant advancements in medicine, electronics, and even astronomy, it is of paramount importance that we are able to inform, teach, and inspire minds across the planet by using communication, scientific communication. Scientific communication pertains to what you might expect it to be: journal papers, articles, group and solo presentations. This includes other media such as televisional programs, educational programs, and the list goes on. So you might be wondering, okay James, we know this exists. Why are you talking about it? Well, I am talking about it because we have clear, identifiable weaknesses in the way we communicate our science. And so, I would like to offer some reasons as to why these weaknesses exist and what we may have to do about it. I would first like to propose that we stop only trying to improve communication as a broad thing. There are multiple different segments that make up scientific communication, and it's extremely important that we tackle each one segment at a time, as some areas within the scientific community is stronger than others. For example, you wouldn't really say that all of the written information out there is bad. However, you could argue that something like say poster presentations could be better. That's just an example. It's not what I'm saying is the case, but that's what I mean by different forms of communication requiring different needs of focus. So for this program, I will be directing the focus to scientific presentations. That is trying to communicate an idea or to showcase significant work through use of presenting. Even further still, I urge that presentations as a whole shouldn't be covered as a broad topic. There are multiple concepts within a presentation to consider in order to give the best presentation possible. One of these concepts are going to be the crux of this program before you. And so without further ado, let's communicate the science of scientific communication. The University of Warwick boasts a number of research departments. WMG is such an academic department, providing research as well as education and knowledge transfer in engineering, manufacturing and technology. Within the International Institute for Nanocomposites Manufacturing building, I spoke to a couple of academics regarding their view of the quality of scientific presentations.
Well, to be honest, I've not really attended that many of them. I sort of find them a little bit intimidating. It's like you'll be sat in a room trapped and there's sort of an incentive to ask questions, answer them. I don't know, it feels pressurized and it can feel a bit dull at times. I have witnessed some exciting presentations, I have, but it was never really related to science necessarily. Or when it was like, it felt more like it was a dramatic thing. It was the energy that makes things exciting, I think. As opposed to necessarily the content. I think that science presentations can be good, but often it's the speaker themselves that ruins it for it, I think. And I dissociate science with that.
Well, I'd say that the average presentation...
I'd say that for science I definitely associate it with being boring, as I say, but I don't know, in general, maybe all of them just on average are boring. I think less yeah, science is certainly skewing it down there, but I don't know. Yeah, I suppose I would.
There's been varying styles used in terms of how they deliver. The good ones are where people are enthusiastic, they move around, they use their hands, they modulate their voice tone. Bad ones are where people read from a slide, people don't make eye contact with anyone in the audience, you don't engage. It could be the most interesting topic in the world, but the delivery is boring, so you switch off. On average, I would say that there are more bad presentations than good, because people when they panic when they're stood there presenting in front of an audience. They start speaking too fast. They forget to communicate with their body as well as their mouth. They panic, they become very defensive, they close themselves up, and yeah, I would say on average there's more bad presentations than good, just purely because of that. I think British people have an issue with that as well, more than let's say European, because British people don't talk with their hands normally, whereas Europeans, some countries do, so they're much more used to talking with their hands and engaging with the audiences, whereas British people don't.
The perspectives of these academics agree strongly with my own in regards to the current state of scientific presentations. I would argue the strong assumption that the general consensus would be that presentations as a whole are of a weaker standard than to what they could be. In order to inquire further into why the standard is as it is, I journeyed to the University of Warwick Library to seek answers and suggestions into how our community could improve. The library is a powerhouse for both offline and online resources, with an entire floor plus more dedicated to scientific resources. Surely then I would find a breadth of information pertaining to communication? That shows the first issue. I could find rows of entire shelves dedicated to one aspect of a key scientific topic, with multiple books spanning one concept. However, for scientific communication, there was only one shelf dedicated to it. Furthermore, for scientific presentations, there was only one book for it. Already, this gives us a small example of the attitude towards scientific communication. So, I looked within this particular book to gain an understanding of their view of scientific presentations, but more specifically, the thoughts towards the delivery of presentations. The Craft of Scientific Presentations by Michael Alley, Critical Steps to Succeed and Critical Errors to Avoid. One of the opening statements of the book suggests that the ability to answer questions of the audience is perhaps the most important advantage of a presentation. However, I disagree. listed within its table of advantages and disadvantages, I would argue that yes, questions are important, but it's actually the opportunity to use delivery for emphasis, which is the most important advantage.
It could be the most interesting topic in the world, but the delivery is boring, so you switch off.
Delivery gives the speaker the ability to inspire an audience. One can read the best written journal paper out there, or read the best report on the topic conceived, but none of these other methods of communication can ever impact someone's inspiration as intensely as a strongly delivered presentation. A particular phrase of this quote by Goodstein within the book drew my attention. The lecture hall was a theatre, and the lecturer a performer, responsible for providing drama and fireworks as well as facts and figures. This resonates with me personally as I try to achieve this in my presentations. For example, I had to deliver a presentation of my research project to fellow master students and was given feedback from each student. One read was quite theatrical and I felt like I was in a lecture. Another stated was able to hold attention well plus passionate, with a third claiming it was the most interesting presentation. As a method to explain and highlight examples of what to do and avoid in a presentation, I recorded 2 separate silent presentations of me delivering to show the importance of certain gestures. Whilst the voice is important too, you can assume that the way I'm using my voice now is in itself a demonstration. At the start of a presentation, try to greet the audience with a big smile to assert friendliness. I also tend to be very loud at the start to wake them up and grab their attention. Avoid putting hands behind your back as it stiffens you and limits movement. Hands need to be free to invite the audience to view your work. Whilst the examples here seem exaggerated, I actually do present like this on the right, and I've seen others do some of the things you should avoid on the left. Dependent on the layout of the room, one should make an effort to interact with each side of the room to engage with as much of the audience as possible. Putting hands inside pockets gives off the vibe that one does not care and can turn away the interest of your audience. Whilst it seems obvious to avoid such a thing, it does happen. Using hand motions to illustrate certain concepts helps to keep the audience engaged. The presentation becomes more theatrical and more interesting and helps the audience understand. Once again, try to target all sides of the audience if possible. It also helps to know who is engaged with your speech, as an indicator of how well you're doing. Personally, I tend to be quite flamboyant when it comes to interacting with the work on the slides. Whilst it isn't extremely necessary to do this, it can help to loosen up and have a bit of fun so that the audience can both enjoy you and your work. It is of paramount importance that you minimize or completely avoid having your back to the audience. This happens extremely often with people who read notes off of the slides. If you need to read notes, skim read and turn towards the audience and talk directly to them rather than at the board. We are all human beings, and so there is no harm in showcasing your personality through gestures. Even in latter parts of a presentation, it is important to establish that pseudo relationship with the audience, even in a professional setting. And never forget to leave your audience with a bright and friendly smile
while you walk away from the stage successful. And with this, I end this demonstration with a quote from Michael Ali's book. Aim higher. Do not be content to present in the staid fashion to which so many presenters resign themselves. Lack of resources and attention may have led to the seemingly negative agreement that scientific presentations are bad. Whilst I had agreements and disagreements with what was presented in Michael Ali's book, I wish that such a thing had been shown to me, potentially a decade ago, in the earlier stages of my education, and not just in science. The themes presented within the book are persistent today, and this book was published in 2003. Over 15 years ago, and there has not seemed to be a change in the opinion that presentations are overall lackluster. As we approach the end of this program, I once again returned to the IINM building of the WMG department to get one more alternate opinion of the reasons for the state of scientific presentations.
In my experience, I find that there is a huge correlation between the notoriety of your research and how good you are at presenting it. I think there's a massive deal to be made about the fact that a lot of huge scientists have had to present their work a lot. They have to know their work back to back in order to continue doing it and developing it, as well as to be able to present it well. So I think when it comes down to it, it's hard to actually get a lot of lower level researchers or less experienced researchers to be as passionate about presenting their work as they are about doing it. Because they simply want to know it as well.
And with that, I must bring this program to a close. I hope that I have managed to raise awareness or teach someone about the state of scientific communication in our community. And I hope that this video does indeed make a difference. I would just like to thank everyone involved in the process of making this program, to all the academic interviewees, the camera help, and the like. My name is James Ekeocha, and I hope to see you all soon.